Thank you everybody for joining us today. If you just want to wait a couple of moments and then we'll get started with the webinar. We're just waiting for everybody to join. Okay, welcome everyone to today's webinar hosted by ECIS. ECIS is the Educational Collaborative of International Schools, established for 55 years as a not-for-profit organisation. We have over 500 members in 78 countries. My name is Georgie McIntyre and I am the Chief Learning Officer at ECIS, and it is my pleasure to introduce today's webinar. We will be sharing a recording of today's webinar and there will be an opportunity at the end to ask questions via the chat box. In today's climate, more than ever, our young people need to develop key skills for life. These include resilience, compassion, self-awareness, creativity, and initiative, all key entrepreneurship skills. David HARKIN, CEO of 7 billion ideas, will position why he believes that an entrepreneurial skill set is now the most important skill we can give to our students in schools. He is the founder of the award-winning educational company 7 billion ideas that has worked with over 100,000 students across the globe. We now recognise future careers for our current young people will be so different to pre-2020. The World Economic Forum already predicted that 80% of the jobs in 2030 have yet to be invented, and following COVID-19 this will be even higher, as every business in the world is adapting quickly to the new normal we operate in. The decade ahead will see a surge in startups, the rise of micro-business, and the celebrate success of entrepreneurs in our business and in our schools. David will now talk freely about how he feels schools can begin to prepare for this now. Please join me in welcoming and handing over to David Harkin. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much for having me, Georgie, and thank you very much for joining everybody. Wherever in the world you might be, it's a pleasure to speak to you this afternoon. I'm going to be talking about, is an entrepreneurship skill set now the most important skill set that we can give our students? As I just click to my next slide. There we go. So who am I? My name is David Harkin. I'm the CEO and founder of an organization called 7 billion ideas. We exist to connect the 7 billion people on the planet with their own ideas. And we passionately believe everybody out there has the ability to change the world. But I'm also a keen runner. I love my sport. Cricket is my favorite sport, and I'm a proud family man as well. Married to my wife Jenny, and we have two boys, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, which keeps us on our toes, Toby and Harry. I can honestly say, apart from all those things outside of work, that I absolutely love what I do, which is being the CEO of 7 billion ideas, despite some of the challenges that we've faced over the last couple of months. But what does the organization actually do? Our mission is to connect the 7 billion people on the planet with their own ideas. I've yet to meet anybody out there who doesn't have a brilliant imagination. Doesn't matter what part of the world they're in, what age group they are. We want to give people the confidence to really act on their ideas. It isn't about churning out millions and millions and millions of entrepreneurs. It's about an entrepreneurial skill set and giving students and teachers the confidence to really articulate and to act on their ideas. We were established back in 2012, so we're 8 academic years in and now worked with over 500 schools and 100,000 students worldwide. We are an award-winning company, and if I was to really just break it down to what we actually do, it's entrepreneurship courses, virtual and face-to-face courses in school in every part of the globe. We believe that it doesn't matter who you are, every single person that has the ability to change the world. I love the quote from Anne Frank about how wonderful it is that nobody needs to wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. We tell, this is pretty much in every single course or assembly or presentation that we do, to really inspire students that there's nothing stopping them. It doesn't need to be when they turn a certain age that they can start expressing and developing their ideas. It can really start now. Now, the reason I wanted to give you a little bit of a history lesson of our background and what we do is because when we teach entrepreneurship, it comes from the heart and it comes from experience as well. Back in 2012, we were the world record crowdfunding pitch in the world when we raised £30,000 in 2 hours. And over the years, we've grown on social media, we've grown our team, we've had offices, we've invested in technology and training. So all of these experiences that we are going through as an organization, we can really articulate in our courses and to our students. So we're experts when it comes to this because we're living and breathing this topic every single day. But apart from having a huge amount of fun in education, why is this important? This was so important pre-2020, but it's becoming even more important now. Well, it's estimated, and in different parts of the world, this statistic will be slightly different, that 15% of schools, 15% of most economies around the world are made up of entrepreneurs. And not all of that 15% would declare themselves as an entrepreneur, but they are. If they're an individual working by themselves, if they've got a small micro business or a slightly bigger business, they fall into this camp of being an entrepreneur. So schools will be producing more entrepreneurs than any other profession. So that's one statistic I really wanted to highlight this afternoon. Secondly, there's just a fascination, in particular by teenagers, about the world of business and about an entrepreneur, about the world of what an entrepreneur does on a day-to-day basis. It is estimated that approximately 77% of students say that they would love to start a business one day in the future. Not necessarily when they're 18 or 21, but at some point in their working life, but they don't feel they're necessarily getting all the opportunities to learn about business, to learn about enterprise and entrepreneurship at school. So we feel there's a big opportunity to go give these teenagers some really exciting experiences to learn all about entrepreneurship. But if I go back to the question that I wanted to address in this webinar this afternoon about why is this so important now, it comes to the next few slides. Georgie touched about the World Economic Forum, and the statistics there vary from 80 up towards 90% of the skills that we predict a student might need in 2030. And this is the great debate. So I did some digging and went back to see what they were saying back in 2015. And this is a very interesting chart to see the top 10 skills that they were recommending a student would need in 2015, 2020, and in 2030. What's interesting when you just do a very quick piece of analysis on this is that judgment and decision making is a consistent skill over those 15 years. Complex problem solving is still there in 2030, but has declined. And suddenly in 2030, the fluency of ideas and originality becomes a thing. It's not been relevant up until this particular point. What I'm trying to articulate with this slide is the goalposts are constantly changing. It's an impossible job for a head teacher to really set up their schools to meet the skills of today and for tomorrow, because they're constantly changing. And with COVID-19 and what's happened in the last 3 to 4 months, this will continue to evolve. It wouldn't surprise me if those skills are completely different in a year's time. So how does a school, actually prepare their students for 2030 and beyond? I've even heard of schools talking about 22nd century education now, as lifespans are continuing to grow. So how do we do this? Look, I think we summarize all of those skills by these 2 words. It's about an entrepreneurial skill set. It's about a skill set which gives you the confidence to come up with ideas, to be able to articulate them and share them, no matter your journey. This isn't about churning out entrepreneurs, but that second term about thinking like an entrepreneur, but within a job or in a public sector role, that's when you're defined as an intrapreneur. So if you just think about in your schools, the best teachers which are in those schools are probably risk takers, probably sharing ideas regular, trying new projects, probably failing often. These people are acting like entrepreneurs in your school, and therefore we would describe them as an intrapreneur. But why is this the most important skill I think head teachers need to get their head around over the coming months and years to start preparing their students? A little bit of doom and gloom. We don't need too much on this webinar, because I will be very positive throughout it. But let's be quite frank here. We are going to be facing one of the biggest global recessions the world has ever seen. What happens in a major recession? This isn't rocket science. There's 2 things happen. The big companies shrink. Okay, if you just look at the numbers, previously my experience, I worked for an organization called IBM. At one point had over 100,000 employees, and it's not near that number now. If you look at the Goldman Sachs, the Procter & Gambles, you look at the big names which have been around for decades, these companies shrink. They have to become leaner to survive, and they do survive because of their size. But that means a lot of people are going out, and a lot of highly qualified people are going out into the workplace without work. And consequently, unemployment rises. If we go back to one of the greatest recessions of all time, back in the 30s, which lasted for 10 years, and if that's the worst case scenario that we're facing following COVID-19 around the world, that means every single student, 8+ in your schools, if not 6+ in your schools, will be affected by what's going on now. The world of work has changed from when they're going to be leaving school to what it was a few months ago. We already knew it was going to be very, very different, but now it's going to be even more different. However, with a global recession, two things also happen. You see the rise of the startup, and you're already seeing it with people trying to solve some of the new problems. People are trying to take new things to market very quickly, and because of this, and because of access to social media, to access of crowdfunding, and access to some of the bounce back loans which are going out there around the globe, it's a very exciting time if you've got a genuine idea which solves a problem. So you're going to see the rise of the startup really accelerating it in the years ahead. But you're also going to see the rise of the micro business. And let me help just explain what a micro business is. This is a business which is less than 10 employees. Okay, a small business is typically that 11 to 49 employees, and a larger business is 50 employees plus. Okay, micro businesses, those very small agile organizations, are going to continue to rise and to pop up. They make up 99% of the businesses in the United Kingdom. Forgive me, that's not a worldwide statistic, but in the United Kingdom, it makes up 99% of the businesses in the UK. So we're going to see the rise of the startup, and we're going to see the rise of the micro business, which means your students are very likely to be going to be creating their own organizations, or they're going to be in organizations which need innovation day in, day out. So this isn't about entrepreneurs. This is about an entrepreneurial skill set and entrepreneurial outlook in life. This is about developing curiosity. I mean, there's a worrying statistic about the amount of questions a student asks as they go through school. The reason I can talk about this, I did a TEDx a few years ago about whether or not a 4-year-old could change the world. A 4-, 5-, 6-year-old will come into school and typically ask about 100 questions every single day. I mean, we can all relate to it, the why, and all those questions that a 4-, 5-, 6-year-old will ask. And by the time a student is 18, they're asking less than single digits. We've really got to make sure our students are as curious as ever and asking amazing questions. We've got to increase the opportunities to be as creative as we possibly can be, giving students the opportunity to work on inventions. It shouldn't be a one-off project. I find a lot of schools do believe in this, and they've got so much on their plate happening at any given time. But unfortunately, normally it's pigeonholed to the last few years of school where they've got an opportunity to start a business. We need strategic plans all the way from when a child joins us at the beginning of their time at school. And we really need to embrace innovation day in, day out. Now, I also believe schools can be role models to their students by trialing new things, to be talking about new ideas they took to market, which were successful, and also which also failed. So an entrepreneurial skill set is really embracing curiosity, developing creativity, and again, leading with innovation whenever possible. These are the only skills that if we had to bet our houses on, that can meet the challenges for tomorrow. If we give a student the capability to be confident in all three of those different areas, we know they've got a chance of finding work, creating work, but more importantly, being happy in the future, being agile to whatever tasks and challenges are ahead of them. So I hope that helps state the case about why this is potentially the most important skill set that heads can really get their heads around in the coming years. But where do we start? You guys have got enough on your heads, enough challenges on your desk at the moment for me to be preaching about this without giving you some solutions. So if I was to really encourage you to where we needed to start, I would go through 7 steps. Firstly, there's one thing, me defining what an entrepreneurship, what I mean by entrepreneurship, but I'm very conscious it's different in different parts of the globe and in different schools. I would, as a school and as a school leader, what do we mean by entrepreneurship in our particular environment? Okay, it's starting with that why. The great Simon Sinek and his Why, How, What TED Talk. Start with what is entrepreneurship and why is this so important? If you believe in it, fantastic. If you don't believe in it, then hopefully I can talk you around it in the next few minutes. Once you've done that, you've got to start with an honest analysis of what's going on in your school, all the way from when a student joins your school to they leave, and including your alumni if possible. This is really straightforward, guys. Just get a blank piece of paper out, ask SLT, ask your senior leaders, ask different people in the school, what are we doing to really help drive entrepreneurship in our school? The next thing is to not beat yourself up, okay? Even if that list of activities that you're doing and the programs that you got in the school, and there aren't many, at least it's an honest reflection. Sometimes I've walked into schools and they said, David, don't worry, we're on top of this entrepreneurship stuff. And I started asking, and they're very busy schools, but busy activities going on, but when you sort of dive into it and you ask more questions about it, in reality, there isn't actually that much going on. I'm a great believer in sometimes less is more. You might as well put your eggs into a few baskets and do those activities to the best of your possibility rather than trying to do too much. So if you started with that honest analysis, don't beat yourself up, because now you've got the foundations to building hopefully a fantastic entrepreneurship program in your school. The next thing is to make sure there's a thread. Now, one thing I said earlier in the webinar is that most heads and most schools that I've met are doing something in this space. Might be junior achievement or young enterprise, for example, but they're in pockets and there's no strategic thread all the way from reception up until when a child leaves a school. There might be something for a 13-year-old and then a 16-year-old, but there's nothing in the middle. Okay, we need to make sure the bare minimum that you can do going into the next academic year is understand where you are and what is going on in the school. And then how can we potentially just fill those gaps? You're not going to create a fantastic world-class entrepreneurship program in a year. It will take a number of years. But what you can do is start making sure we're taking the right steps next year. Number 5 is really challenge what you're doing. I hear of the same activities happening in schools for numbers and numbers of years. For example, the Dragon's Den initiative or the Shark Tank initiative in different parts of the world. Students get the same opportunity to do it, and the energy there and the enthusiasm's there, but we're not even looking at the program and thinking about different ways that it can change from year on to year. That's normally because sometimes these programs are put into activity days or into enterprise weeks or into extracurriculum activities, and they're being run with goodwill, but we're not looking at them as something strategic as a subject lesson, okay? So if you've got something which is established and it's popular, fantastic, let's take it to the next level. I'll give you a really good example if you really want to develop this entrepreneurial skill set. We were working with a school who was running a fashion show for social enterprise. So social enterprise is something we can touch on in a bit if of interest. And I just said to the sixth formers which were running this event, and it was making the same amount of money every single year. I said, okay, imagine now you're the CEO of the event, and imagine you've got a CFO, imagine you've got an operating officer, imagine you've got a marketing officer. Look at the event like a business opportunity. How are you going to increase your revenue of that particular event, which fundamentally will allow you to increase more, raise more money for that charity? So they created a board of directors. Instead of just doing the same thing and getting the same result, which was a good outcome, they put different protocols around it. They decided to make the social enterprise event into a learning enterprise event. They created a board of directors, and they went and they increased their take-ins by 50% by adding 3 or 4 new revenue streams. Okay, so just challenge what you've got. But lastly, and I think which should, well, not lastly, second to last, I think which would be really important to consider is, to me, a school is a family. You have your students, you have your parents, you have your teachers. Your parent body can be incredibly powerful when it comes to this topic. There's no better way of getting role models in schools and just telling them more about the experience of what entrepreneurship is and demystifying it sometimes. And you don't need the global entrepreneurs which are out there sometimes. Sometimes they're just on your doorstep. You could, if you've not taking LinkedIn really seriously, I would consider setting up your proper school LinkedIn profiles, but also having a parent body group on LinkedIn, encouraging your parents to join it and begin to see what are these interesting careers that these parents do who send their children to our wonderful schools? Are there entrepreneurs out there? Are there people that we can invite in and talk to our students? Bring your parents with you with this particular program. Look to launch it at some point next year. They will be excited about it because many of them will come from the entrepreneurial world or the startup world or work in micro businesses. But you'll be missing a trick unless you also consider building it into the school's kind of USP and marketing it. We know it's going to be competitive in the coming years, the international school market. But I've yet to see a school which really hasn't pushed this at the forefront of its story, of its USP, not benefit as well from a marketing and admissions point of view. So make sure if you're going to do this, take it seriously, but make sure it does actually stretch beyond the benefits of the student. It can have a knock-on impact to the benefit of the school. So just to recap, define what you mean by entrepreneurship in your school. Start with an honest analysis. Don't beat yourself up. Make sure there's a thread. Basically get a scrap, not a scrap piece of paper, get a whiteboard out, get those people which are busy in the school, those people which know about projects, know about the competitions you're involved in, see and just try and put it all into one place to say, look, this is what we're doing, okay? Moving ahead, begin to challenge your offerings and just make sure that there's no gap. So a student in year 8 isn't doing anything around this particular topic because it's going to be so vital for them in the future. Once you look to the next academic year, hopefully you're beginning to see a portfolio of really interesting, exciting projects for your school students. Then you can really consider how you're going to bring the parents with you, and then you can build it into your USP as a school and consider how you might want to market it in the future. I just want to leave you with a few points before we actually announce something really exciting. That imagine if every single child has the confidence to be has the confidence to be creative and the ability to articulate their ideas in the world. I just want people to remember that Anne Frank quote about how wonderful it is that we don't need to wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. Ever since I became a founder and an entrepreneur of 7 billion ideas, it's been fascinating the conversations I've had with my peers, my friends, my families, that network. And the amount of people who say, I've got an idea, I've got an idea, I've got an idea. And I keep saying, why aren't you doing anything about it? Okay. And they just haven't got the confidence or the belief that they can actually do something with it. Now, imagine if we just shifted this completely on its head and our students came out with that confidence and that belief to share their ideas and actually act on them. It will push the boundary of education. It will push the boundaries of the healthcare sector. It will push the boundaries of innovation in business if we can give all our students just that % or 2 more confidence. Now, before, I believe some questions are beginning to come in, which is fantastic. But before I take some questions, what I also wanted to announce today is we've got a really exciting opportunity that we can help you in the short term and also in the long term with your entrepreneurship programs at your school. We've partnered with ECIS for this summer to launch a course called Home Hack. We know the holiday season is going to be a very turbulent time for a lot of students. Students might not be going on holiday, and some holiday camps in school are going to be under threat whether or not they happen or not. Therefore, we're delighted to say that starting from the 29th of June and running for 6 weeks all around the world, there's different opportunities to take part in a course that we've designed and taken to market called Home Hack. So it's a 4-day summer virtual course. Students are going to get the opportunity to work on ideas which can solve problems in their home. It's a live course with facilitators, masterclass speakers, entrepreneurs coming on, and we're going to take them through the 12 levels of Home Hack. It will run for 4 hours a day, so hopefully students can come on and enjoy the course, and in the afternoon they can have some downtime or take part in the Home Hack extension projects. And from what we've seen, the students are working on some amazing ideas. What we will be doing is sending some communication out following this webinar, but I just encourage you to go and visit 7billionideas.com/homehack. But more importantly, go have a look at some of the business plans which have been created by some of the students which have taken part in this course. It's a parent-paid course, so there's nothing that we need from our schools, and all we're looking to do at this stage is get your support that actually this looks really, really cool, this looks really different. I think my parent body would be really excited to hear about this, and then get your support to send the letters out. And just to give you the level of confidence about how much of an impact this course has made, we had in our Easter courses earlier in the year, we had a parent of a 12-year-old boy taking part in the course, and she was a professor at the University of Surrey, and said, actually, some of the content here is better than our MBA, and asked us to do exactly the same course, which was aimed for 10 to 15-year-olds for PhD students. So it really does transcend age barriers and cultures around the world. So please go have a look at some of the business plans. The way that this is going to work, if you want to get this out for this short-term opportunity, in the longer term, just please touch base with us. We'd be more than happy to form partnerships with you. But we're going to be sending out communication to the schools to find out, look, we're really interested about promoting this to our parent body and letting them decide. If you come back and confirm, then what we will do is work with you to give you a templated letter for you to edit. There's a discount code which we've been working with the guys to be able to offer to ECIS members, which gives you 50% off the cost. So it's effectively £10 a day per student. And then the parents will go to the website, have an opportunity to book their child on, find the HOMAC event, which is running in their country, and get access to the event. So please do consider it. We hope it's also going to solve problems for you, because we know schools on the whole do take a lot of responsibility for the summer school provision. But I'm delighted to say that this information will be coming out shortly, and we hope that we can have your support. We also know for the schools, there's also a good opportunity here to just be taking the front foot, to be demonstrating to your parents that you're continuing to look for innovative programs, excellent entrepreneurial programs for your students to take part in. We know it could be quite a frustrating time for parents over the coming months, as many students will be facing 6 or 8 weeks at home. So hopefully 4 days with us on a home hack course will be a really exciting opportunity for them to relish, but also provide an interactive, fresh and fun. We make it as fun as we possibly can for the students during this time. So that was something we wanted to announce today. But going back to this question that I started off with about, is an entrepreneurial skill set now the most important skill set we can give our students? I might be a little bit biased because I run a company which has worked in this space for a number of years, but I truly believe it is, and it is now. I think head teachers and leaders in education have already had, way before COVID-19, so many challenges on their doorstep. The emotion in the school is quite extraordinary, from the teachers, the parents, the students. In no other industry around the world are leaders expected to deal with all of that. My personal opinion is that schools are businesses, but they're in the business of world-class education, which means that the head teacher's responsibility is huge, and in a competitive market in the international school sector. So it's difficult, but if I had to encourage you to really consider one area to really put higher up on the agenda into next year and the years ahead, I would be talking about this. But you need to make sure people understand it isn't about churning out millions of entrepreneurs. It's about that skill set that we can give our students. And if you get that thread of activity, you'll be making a really good start next year. So we have an immediate opportunity to engage with you, to support, to begin to build that partnership with the school. But longer term, if you're looking for a little bit more guidance, or you're interested about diving in a little bit further into some of the points that we talked about, just get in contact. I'm also on LinkedIn as David J. Harkin. So just get in contact and I'll be more than happy to help. But I think that brings me to a conclusion of where I was trying to get to this afternoon. And I'll be very happy to take any questions that we've got from our participants.
Thank you, David. That was actually really quite motivating and re-energizing. I think everybody's feeling a little bit tired, and that's certainly a positive sort of focus for us, thinking for how we can address things for the future. We have actually got some questions here, so I'm delighted to share these with you. We've got Emma Parker. She's sort of saying, how can schools work together to advocate for greater recognition by universities of skills over exam scores when granting students acceptance to their institution?
Yeah, great question. Can you see me? If I go off screen, I'd like to, so people can, I'll go off screen and hopefully you can just still see me.
Yeah, we can still see you, yeah.
What a wonderful question. It's actually a really
good old
interesting
UCAS statements, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. We're running an event next week called Unlocking Education, because I actually genuinely believe that the opportunity of change now for the next 18 months is quite profound. I know there's a huge sense of tiredness in the sector, and I think it's really important that people are planning that relief period in August where you get some, or July, you've got to switch off and get some rest, and you've got to dust yourself down and get ready for the next wave. But actually, if you think about it, we've all been moaning about a lot of things for a long time, and the rule book is being literally thrown out the window in a lot of environments around the world. So that's when we've got the opportunity to push boundaries. And I think if you're talking about how do we change universities and how they look at school, I think it's going to happen naturally. I think universities are going to have to open themselves up a little bit more, because they're going to be under threat as well. Because fundamentally they're fee-paying organizations in many parts of the world. So I think you're going to naturally see universities be a little bit more flexible to it. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think we just, I'd love to see students, when they're going for their universities or they're going for job applications, just to be talking about the businesses or the inventions that they've been involved in. But I hope it's going to be a natural step. That's very optimistic. But I think the more we're talking about it and the more pressure we can be putting on to universities from schools up about, you need to be more open-minded, I think that will help. But I think it will also be a little bit of a natural impact, because they are fee-paying organizations and they're going to have to be more agile on fundamentally where they get their clients from. Yeah,
totally agree, David. It's been, from a personal perspective, I've had both my stepdaughter and my son finishing their dissertations this year. And it's been a very different type of uni experience than one would have expected. And very much, their exams are very much open book. They're sort of not in a standard format. And everyone's sort of unsure, even the teachers, about how they're going to mark or grade these things. So I do think there is going to be opportunity here for shifting, less focus on sort of that one performance in a classroom for a few hours, over to sort of a wider skill set. So there's definitely value here for sort of widening our students' skills. So thank you.
Can I just build on that as well? Yeah. I also think the micro business is going to be fascinated by Generation Z as well. From my personal experience, and I think the micro businesses, those startup businesses, are going to really be pinpointing and trying to recruit Generation Z. Because the 18-year-old leaving school now has the ability to flip between 3 or 4 jobs in a day, which not all generations could do. Mm-hmm. So I think you're going to see, you'll see a change in universities, and I think you're going to see businesses try to change the rhetoric around it, that university isn't the only option, come work for us. Yeah. Because I know that 18, 19, 20-year-old, it can be very diverse, and it can be a massive asset to a business.
Yeah, definitely. I think also there seems to be a wider shift towards sort of the opportunities that apprenticeships are offering as well. So a lot more people are wanting to actually learn whilst they're working. So this is again back to sort of less emphasis on the UCAS sort of areas and exam performance. Quick question here from Miko. Do you offer free training courses for teachers? Because they're finding it very interesting what you've had to say, David.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 things that we do. Well, there's a lot of things we do for teachers. But one, I think if you look talking about setting up a new strategy in your school, some of the tips I've given this afternoon of just literally starting with a whiteboard is the right place to start. Okay, you don't have to overcomplicate it. But something secondly that we're working on is a project that we're going to be launching in the next couple of months called Embrace. I'm a big believer in mentality, and I think the resilience of our teachers it's been quite tough. It's been very hard to be a teacher the last few months, and it will continue to be hard. So, but I think there's a lot we can do as an organization in encouraging, embracing a world-class mentality and a little bit of self-reflection, and growing those kind of skills that our teachers continue to need themselves, which is around resilience and grit. Mm-hmm. So kind of stay tuned, get in contact, and hopefully in a couple of months' time I'll be able to say that there's going to be even more that we're going to be doing.
Brilliant, excellent. Emma again has said, how does David recommend applying the entrepreneurial skill set in a non-business manner? So she's sort of teaching at the moment GCSE and A-level biology exam classes. So is there any opportunity for application there?
Yeah, there is. I talked to some schools about super lessons. When you talk about creativity and in how you can sometimes create projects across subjects. For example, school we worked with, and I was coaching the head of art, and we talked about that they wanted to do exactly that, but not just be talking about business. So I said, well, look, let's talk about creativity within your subject. And I said, why don't you consider creating super lessons in your school? Why doesn't the art department, why doesn't the chemistry department, why doesn't the maths department get together and just come up with a very creative project which goes across 3 subjects? And that's exactly what they did. So there's always opportunities to drive the lessons to be even more creative and just take even more risks in the classroom.
Yeah, I think there's lots of opportunity there, David, that, you know, for development there with teachers. So Andy has asked, how about overseas students, like from Indonesia? Are they able to access HomeHack?
Absolutely. We had just a couple of weeks ago, we had 300 students from a school in Jakarta take part in Indonesia, and were absolutely fantastic. So, in fact, what's been really interesting entering the sector, and because my background was tech before coming into education, was demystifying students in different parts of the world and in different cultures about how creative they were, or about what skill sets they had in different parts of the world. We've just been blown away about the creativity in every aspect of the world, including Indonesia as well. So we have European, Middle East, Asia streams all going on. If you check HomeHack and filter by region, you can see some of the up and coming courses in the summer. So we try to pick as near to perfect dates as possible, give a student maybe a week or 2 downtime, and then we know they'll be itching for something in the middle of the summer so they can take part in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're probably going to look to sort of schedule a few more in the autumn as well. So yeah, excellent. And Nico, again, are there any tips in particular for young entrepreneurs?
Just get going with your ideas and start learning now. I think the biggest, it's about confidence and knowledge, right? People feel you need to be a certain age before you can get going on creating a business or an enterprise. If you've got an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old, they can get going now. They can start learning, and there's no better way than just learning. So if you've got students who are really, really kind of excited about it, I kind of go, right, cool, let's work on something. What ideas have you got? What could we take to market together? Even if they sell absolutely nothing, they'll learn from the program. I think if you start with understanding that kind of what is happening in my school, have we got enough creative programs? Have we got enough opportunity to learn? And if there are gaps, you can introduce them. There's organisations such as ourselves, and there's other organisations which can come in and really, really help.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, David. From my perspective, have you had any great ideas that students have come up with that have actually gone to market and been successful? Have you got great examples?
Yeah, well, I take 2 ideas. 2 ideas which I like. One hasn't gone to market because it was only last year, and it was from a group of 6-year-olds who took part in a 7 billion ideas competition, and they were all in year 2, and they were working on a competition with a group of schools. And their idea was the Munzie, which was a mattress on the back of a onesie. And the problem that they wanted to solve was one of the boys turned up and, in fact, he was a twin with his sister, and said, look, we go to sleepovers and there's nowhere to sleep. The parents are always running around trying to find sleeping bags and mattresses and pillows. And said, don't worry, we solved the problem. And they said, we just think we can turn up with our onesie. It's got a mattress on the back, like a thin layer of foam, and we've got somewhere to sleep. And so they pitched it to our team, and we were like, that is just amazing. And that was from a group of kind of, the youngest age group, not concerned. So that was great. And then we also had about 5 years ago, it was actually a group of grumpy year 11 boys who we were working with. But they started off grumpy, and then they got really excited about their idea. And they had one of their younger brothers started at school and was getting bullied. Was in the corridor, and his bag kept on getting unzipped, and the books were being tipped out by some lads in his year group. And one of the boys said, actually, I've got an idea. I think I could solve that. So what they created was a vice versa bag, which they took to market, and they actually sold in John Lewis here in the UK. They changed where the zip was on the bag. So rather than having the access of the zip on the back, the zip was against their back. And now it's a little bit common because it solves that problem, but also solves pickpocketing.
Yeah,
but what I quite liked about those 2 ideas, we had such a young group of students there come up with something so refreshing. And then you go to the other spectrum where you get a student say, I'm not sure if this kind of entrepreneurial thing is for me, but actually as soon as they identify a problem, they get so excited about their idea that these students in particular can let it drop. So
brilliant.
it's really nice. And also because of the power of LinkedIn now as well, we find that students get in contact when they're kind of working on different ventures, if they're at university or not, or they've got some more ideas, which is really, really nice to see. But we kind of see ourselves as that enabler at the beginning, getting people really believing in themselves.
Excellent. Question from Ellie here, Ellie Flesher. Can 17 and 18-year-olds take the Home Hack program too?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really interesting because everybody sometimes thinks courses have to be a certain age group, certain place. So when we actually designed Home Hack, we designed it for 11 to 14-year-olds. And then we kept on getting, we had a university asked if they could run it for PhD students. So we said yes, being entrepreneurs. We said, yes, of course we could. So yes, it is. So what we do is that there's a guideline there. And if a parent wants to put, or you want to advertise it to slightly older students, we do not have an issue for it. Because what we've really tried to kind of respect the delegate, if that makes sense. So it makes sense that it doesn't actually matter if they're 10 or 17, but kind of respecting the fact that they're there. We're making sure it's a globalized course, so it doesn't matter where you are in the world. We've got global references, and although it's fun, we're still expecting, that those students which are really excited about business and entrepreneurship to take part. So yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay. And Andy from Indonesia we've just exchanged emails, contacts, and he's definitely going to be looking to host for your courses. So that's really exciting. Does anyone have any other further questions for David before we draw the webinar to a close? Just while we're wrapping up then, I just want to thank you, David, because I think it is really encouraging and really sort of exciting to think about something really, really positive. It's been such an exhausting time, I think, for everybody, particularly within the educational environment. So I think that this is a great opportunity to actually stop and reflect and start thinking about the future and planning for our students again. So this is a series of webinars that we do with ECIS, and they are offering a number of Home Hack summer events through us. So I will get in touch with everybody who's registered today and make sure that you can get the details, and we'll also be sending it out to all of our member schools. But if any of you want to email me directly, I'll put my email on here shortly. I'm happy to sort of share out David's contact details and all the information about Home Hack if another school's interested. One final question from Tom, actually, David. Do you offer your guided workshops overseas? I think we've kind of covered that. But...
Yeah, we do. So we do, traditionally up until a couple of months ago, effectively, we have our virtual courses and face-to-face, and we put no limits on where we work overseas. So we've always had teams in parts of Asia, the Middle East, all over the world and stuff. So absolutely we can do that. And George, you're just picking up on your point, because I generally, education's been on the front line with the healthcare sector, just slightly behind a little bit. But what's really been what's evident in the last couple of months is the bedrock of pretty much every society around the world. I would encourage everybody in their schools to really be considering that kind of rest period, how people are going to properly switch off. You need to. It's exhausting being a leader, but then get really excited now about the next chapter we've got ahead here. That's what students need. That's what parents need. That's what teachers need. Let's make sure we have some really exciting visions. And I hope that this has given you something to think about as you move towards the summer, around how important entrepreneurship and that kind of skill set could be for you, your legacy in your school, but more importantly for the students there. So just get in contact for your help. Would love to have your students on Home Hack, but also form partnerships for the years ahead.
Thank you so much, David. I don't think I could wrap that up any better. So I think that's a really positive note. As mentioned, we will be sharing out a recording of this webinar as well, and featuring that on our website. So, and thank you all for taking your time to join us today. We know you're all very busy people, but we really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.